My name is Rebecca Hayes. I am 39 years old. Additionally, I learned that family devotion has its limits when my own mother declared me an unsuitable parent during my ex-husband's custody hearing. My daughter, Your Honor, has never been stable. In the crowded family courtroom, my mother's voice reverberated. She is hardly able to maintain a job. She's gone through periods of therapy. In all honesty, I don't believe she should have any custody of my grandchild. My brown hair was tied back in the same subtle way as my white blouse and basic navy jacket when I sat at the defendant's table. I had kept up this look for 15 years. My finger still had a pale band from the wedding ring I had finally taken off 6 months prior, which seemed to sparkle in the bright courtroom lighting. My former husband, with his pricey attorney nodding in agreement with my mother's heartbreaking story, grinned smugly from the opposite side of the aisle. It was obvious that they had prepared this ambush, understanding that any court would take my mother's remarks seriously. As my mother warmed to her theme, she said, "She's never been able to provide stability." Her voice grew louder. "She vanishes for days on end. She says she's at work, but I have never observed any indication of a stable job. With a father who can truly support him and has a solid career, my grandson needs a true home." Tyler, age 8, was seated beside my sister Karen in the front row. He watched his grandmother testify against his mother, his black eyes wide with bewilderment. As damning as our mother's remarks, Karen avoided looking me in the eye. I reflected on the 2 years that had passed since my divorce, the nights I had spent racking my brains over custody disputes while also managing some of the most intricate cases in the state court system. About the cautious equilibrium I'd uphold between my obligations as a mother to Tyler and my work obligations. She resides in a small flat in the city center. My mom persevered, despite having an outdated car and barely affording Tyler's education supplies. Marcus, meanwhile, maintains a steady job, a lovely suburban home, and the capacity to give each child the kind of life they deserve. Behind the bench, Judge Patricia Morrison sat. While listening to the testimony, she maintained a neutral demeanor. She was a co-worker I had known for more than 10 years and was aware of the pressures of our line of work, but she showed little appreciation as she upheld the impartial manner that her job required. "Rebecca has always been discreet about her so-called work," my mother added, building to a crescendo. "She claims to work in a significant position, although she refuses to disclose her true job to us. She might be engaged in an illegal activity that could endanger my grandchild. We can never be sure." Silent agreement filled the courtroom. With their nods in agreement with my mother's character assassination, Marcus's family occupied the left half of the gallery. I had hardly anything left on my side. A small group of buddies who had taken time off work to encourage me. People who were genuinely aware of my line of work. James Crawford, Marcus's attorney, took the court by storm. "Respected one, we think the evidence unequivocally demonstrates that giving my client complete custody would be in the child's best interests. The mother's incapacity to offer fundamental stability, along with her evasive conduct over her job, causes grave doubts regarding her suitability as a parent." I keep quiet as I watch this planned assault play out, my hands folded serenely in front of me. 15 years of expertise in the legal system have taught me that time is crucial and that you should wait for others to unveil themselves before raising your hand. Judge Morrison spoke to me directly, "Ms. Hayes. How would you react to these accusations? Concerning your work and your capacity to support your son?" I stood deliberately, moving with purpose and control. "I want to address those issues by calling a witness, Your Honor." Marcus, the attorney, appeared perplexed. "No witnesses were reported to us, Your Honor. Although the witness wasn't available until this morning, I calmly responded that I think his testimony will answer any questions." Concerning my work situation, Morrison, the judge, gave a nod. "Excellently. Kindly call your witness." I strolled towards the courtroom doors and unlocked them. A tall, immaculately dressed man in a dark suit walked in, his silver hair styled to perfection, his demeanor instantly inspiring admiration. I responded, "Your Honor," my voice clear over the abrupt silence. "The courtroom. Chief Justice William Barrett is the one I want to summon to the stand." The courtroom was filled with an audible gasp. The look on my mother's face changed from assurance to perplexity to horror as I walked to the witness stand, which was the Chief Justice of the State Supreme Court. I said, "Chief Justice Barrett," adopting the formal tone that had become my go-to voice for the past 15 years. "Would you kindly identify me for the court?" With a formal yet friendly tone, the Chief Justice gazed straight at me. "As an Associate Justice of the State Supreme Court, you are the Honorable Rebecca Hayes, where you've served for the last 8 years with distinction." In the courtroom, the stillness was deafening. I could hear my mom taking a sharp inhale. Might observe the lawyer for Marcus furiously going over documents. I went on, "And Chief Justice Barrett, could you explain the nature of my work responsibilities?" Justice Hayes oversees some of the most intricate criminal and civil cases in our nation. "Yes," he said. "In addition to chairing our Judicial Ethics Committee and serving on our appellate panel for death sentence cases, she has authored other significant rulings in the fields of family law and child welfare." Tyler's astonished eyes were wide, as for the first time he realized why his mother had to work so late. Why did she occasionally disappear while carrying bulky legal briefs in her study? Why did she discuss justice and equity with such authority? Fairness? I asked one more question, Chief Justice. "Could you respond to the accusations regarding my ability to pay?" A small smile came to his face. "Each year, Justice Hayes receives a salary of $195,000 plus benefits. She owns a penthouse apartment in the heart of the city and a mountain vacation residence. As required for all sitting judges, financial disclosure forms are part of the public record." My mother was sitting in the courtroom with her mouth hanging wide and her well-crafted testimony coming apart as I turned to face her. Herself. "Judge Morrison, Your Honor," I said. "I want to give the court an explanation for why my family didn't know about my job." Evidently, Judge Morrison nodded. Fascinated. My decision to keep my personal and professional lives apart was made 8 years ago when I was confirmed to the state Supreme Court. It wasn't since I felt embarrassed by my work. The exact opposite. My goal was to provide my son a typical upbringing free from the scrutiny and strain that comes with being a judge's kid. Tyler's expression was a mix of perplexity and pride when I looked at him. I decided to live simply, drive a sensible automobile, and buy at regular stores instead of upscale boutiques. What I desired was that, instead of growing up feeling entitled due to his mother's status, Tyler should learn the importance of diligence and humility. Marcus looked at me like I was brand new to him. Throughout our marriage, he had consistently berated my dull employment at the courthouse without ever attempting to inquire about the specifics of my job. I went on to say that I'm frequently unavailable for long stretches of time because I'm overseeing complicated situations. It may continue for weeks or months. Because I was drafting court rulings that had an impact on thousands of families throughout our state, I was unable to attend school functions every day. Chief Justice Barrett was the first to speak. "I would like to add, Your Honor, that in my 30 years on the bench, Justice Hayes has one of the best legal minds I have ever met. Federal courts have affirmed her rulings, and she has received national recognition for her family law efforts." After returning to the defendant's table, I realized that I was no longer a defendant. I was a sitting judge, as I had always been, with 15 years of legal expertise as well as a track record of justice and honesty. "Your Honor," I told Judge Morrison, "I have dedicated my professional life to safeguarding children and families. Children have been removed as a result of decisions I've written. From abusive families that have made sure that custody agreements are fair and prioritize the welfare of children over all other factors." The silence in the courtroom was absolute. The accusation that I am somehow incapable of taking care of my own son is not only, it's untrue and offensive to all the families and children whose interests I have defended from this same bench. I glanced at my mother, who had turned pale. "What are these accusations?" "They are especially hurtful because they were made by people who never bothered to inquire about my job, showed no interest in my profession, and assumed the worst without checking the facts." The attorney for Marcus was obviously rushing. "Of Your Honor, we knew nothing." "What is it?" I broke the silence. "Regarding the fact that your client was wed to, for 6 years, she served as a justice on the state Supreme Court without bothering to find out what she did for a living." The judge leaned forward. Mr. Crawford, was your client unaware of his wife's occupation when they were married? At last, Marcus managed to speak, stuttering. She claimed to be employed at the courthouse. I assumed she worked as a clerk. The ridiculousness of that hovered in the atmosphere like a mist of poison. My spouse had thought I was a judicial clerk for 6 years, and he had never asked me why I put in so many hours at work, why I brought complicated legal documents home, or why I occasionally had to travel to attend court proceedings. Speaking directly to Judge Morrison, I said, "Your Honor, and I would want to present my financial disclosure forms and the custody evaluation report written by Dr. Sandra Williams, the child psychologist who was assigned by the court." The records were swiftly reviewed by Judge Morrison. You were deemed by Dr. Williams to be an excellent parent with close ties to your child, and to have faith in your capacity to care for and mentor them. I took one more glance across the courtroom at my embarrassed sister, my ex-husband, who was ashamed, and my mother, who was unable to look me in the eyes. Looked at Tyler, who was staring at me with pride and fresh insight, and at the floor. I've devoted my professional life to making sure that the best interests of children are prioritized when making custody decisions, I added, honoring you. I've witnessed what occurs when parents use their kids as weapons, when family members turn against one another for their own benefit, and when presumptions take the place of facts. My conviction increased the volume of my voice. While the father completes co-parenting programs, I'm asking for full physical custody of my son and supervised visitation. Additionally, I'm asking that any future custody talks be managed, excluding the participation of relatives who have shown a willingness to give false testimony. Judge Morrison grudgingly nodded. With the facts in hand and the troubling testimony from the defendant's mother, I'm giving Justice Hayes complete custody. The father's visitation will be monitored for the next 6 months, and it may be revised if the court-mandated parenting classes are completed successfully. When the courtroom started to empty, Tyler rushed over to me and put his arms around my waist. "Mom," he muttered, "why didn't you tell me you were a judge?" I got on my knees, to his level. "Because I wanted you to love me for being your mom, not because of my job." "I think it's cool," he remarked with a grin. "Does this indicate that you can lead someone in jail?" "Sometimes," I said. My mom reluctantly stepped forward and said, "But mostly I help families figure out how to take care of each other." Her former self-assurance has completely vanished. "Rebecca, I didn't know. I truly apologize." I got to my feet and put my arm around Tyler's shoulders. "Mom, you gave an oath of testimony that without knowing anything about my background, my work, or my abilities, I was an unfit parent. You were prepared to use preconceptions and bias to ruin my relationship with my son." Tears were streaming from her eyes. "I believed I was assisting," Marcus stated. "I interrupted Marcus while he was saying what he needed to say to gain custody, and you trusted him rather than your own daughter. Now, only family members and a few lingering onlookers occupied the courtroom, which was almost deserted. You've been asking me for 15 years what I do for a living, and I've given you evasive replies because I wanted to keep my secrets. However, you were never assertive or genuinely interested. Since I didn't boast about my accomplishments, you believed that I didn't have any." My sister Karen was sobbing silently in the corner when I looked at her. The front row. I became one of the youngest judges in the history of the state at the age of 41. Law schools teach the rulings I've written. I have saved thousands of families and kids. Justice and fairness are the things I've devoted my life to. After politely waiting in the gallery, Chief Justice Barrett came over to me. "Rebecca, I hope you don't let this incident deter you from carrying on with your fantastic job." "Chief Justice, thank you," I said. "In fact, it has made me realize why our work is so important, crucial." I understood that this traumatic event had given me an important lesson as Tyler held my hand as we left the courthouse. I had poured so much effort into keeping my son safe, because I had concealed my true identity from those who ought to have known me the best, which could have caused issues in my job. More significantly, though, I had discovered that an assumption-based respect is useless, whereas integrity earned is unchangeable. Marcus was given unsupervised visitation 6 months after completing his parenting programs. Neither did he ever get married again, nor did he ever doubt my ability to support our son. I never replied to the letter of apologies my mother wrote me. Some betrayals are too painful and expose too much about the individual to just forgive and go on. Now that his mother is a judge, Tyler informs his pals with pride. He has gained knowledge about the significance of justice, equity, and standing up for what is right. Also, he's discovered that occasionally, you can be deeply injured by the people who love you the most, but that doesn't make you less valuable. As for me, I discovered that you are not protected by hiding your light. It simply facilitates things to undervalue you. I began to be proud of my achievements, stopped disguising who I was, and showed my son that honesty and diligence are things to be proud of. The lady who entered left the courtroom feeling alone and assaulted, but she also left feeling strong and vindicated. What I'd accomplished wasn't the difference. It was in my readiness to at last reveal to people who I truly was. As it happens, justice is more than just a service. At times, it's something that you assert for yourself.